Okay, hello. This is take 3 of my glitchy one-shot explanation. I want to walk you through one of my favorite racks that I got from an artist named Zompax. Super cool. It's for doing glitchy one-shot textures that I like to put on top of actual tracks. I use it for as like a ideation tool, so I can create different sounds and then pull them out and then place them. It tends to create more rhythmic things, so it's a good idea if you're trying to look for things to play on like specific downbeats, or if you have a rhythm or a groove. It works pretty well for that. So let me dig through this patch for you guys. Here is the patch down at the bottom. You can kind of see we've got a mono sequencer with a random and an expression control, which is used for modifying properties. The core of it here is this actual simpler or sampler if you're not using Ableton. And then it runs into a couple of things. The tuner is just for information, but the shifter and delay, these kind of give it a little bit of extra flair. Really what we're trying to do is take an original sample and turn it into something that maybe sounds only loosely associated to what it originally was. So how does it work? The first thing you do is you take any sample that you have. So I like to grab some weird long form textures or a voice recording or something, and I'll kind of drop them all into Ableton, and I will piece them together like this so there's not too much dead space, and then I will grab them and combine them so they become a single track, and then I will take that and drag it in here. And now you can see here's that thing I just made. In simpler, you want to use slice mode. So what slice does is it goes through, it finds transients, and it tries to, it finds whatever you choose it to slice by. I prefer using transients. It makes one shots a little bit cleaner and a little more kind of what you're looking for. Sensitivity here changes how much of a transient it looks for in order to find it. So generally, you can kind of see, I'll take like this one, right? And we can see there's a huge range of sample in here. But as I pull the sensitivity down, it kind of spreads out and finds things that are more true transients instead of things that maybe are like smaller transients over time. So we'll kind of set that in a good place here. We can zoom in and take a look at what we've got going on. So how does this work? The idea is every single one of these transient slices is a note on the keyboard. So as you play C, D, E, F, G, etc., that will trigger playback in the simpler from one of those points that we've sliced to. This is really cool when you start applying randomization to this. So if you say you're only playing a C note and then you have a random ARP generator on it, all of a sudden you're bouncing around, you're kind of randomly picking through this sample and finding specific interesting tones and textures that can play. When you start putting this on a grid and you have something like mono sequencer here that I use, all of a sudden you're now playing things at a specific step that are at a certain point inside of your sequencing. So you can turn on, well, let me show you what it sounds like without. So yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do. The longer you hold it down, the more of the slice it plays. Mono sequencer is a really cool way for you to automatically play sounds in patterns and rhythms and apply things like pitch, velocity, octaves, jumps, and stuff like that. I usually always run this into an actual random chance thing to kind of mix it up even a little bit more. But mono sequencer is kind of a great way to like make sure you're playing on the beat on specific like rhythms and patterns that you want. Here's what that sounds like. So you can also do randomization and stuff in this too. So you kind of get the idea. It sounds pretty interesting. The cool stuff that you can do with this is using expression control. You can take random sources here, and you can map them to things on the simpler or other devices. So these will re-trigger every time you play a new note with a different random value. It's like a sample and hold. And I have it set up to grain size, flux, etc. You can do velocity to volume as well, give you a little bit more of a like variation in volume and texture and sound, fade in, fade out of these things. I also map it to things like the dry wet of a delay that's set up with a really interesting ping-pongy sound. There's also a shifter that changes tone. You're really looking to try and make it different in really interesting ways, and the best way to do that is random variation of the way that you play back the sound. At this point, what I like to do is I will make a new track, set it to resampling, and then record on this, and I will get something. Oh. Okay, so you can see we've got some interesting stuff. We've got specific like starting notes for patterns. Then what I do is I tend to take these, drop them in different places, try and find something like interesting, right? This is kind of cool. What about this? Cool, yeah, I like that. So I'll take this chunk here and I'll kind of pull it out. And this is just an example, but let's say I go here and I want to now make like a rhythmic pattern with this, just playing on every like downbeat or something, right? Let's see how this sounds with everything in. Okay. So already we've got something that's kind of like rhythmic. You can turn this into more of a lead, but if you're looking for more like support, then what you want to do is take these sounds and try and like affect them in a way that works more with like psytrancey type stuff. So, you know, we can throw a ping pong delay on, make it feedback kind of hard, add some reverb. Cool, already sounds great. But let's modify this a little bit more, right? So I can go in here, grab this, and let's do this. I want this to be like a little bit glitchier, right? So we'll grab this, and then I'm just gonna like literally just duplicate it. So you can hear it already is kind of getting that weird like glitchy transient sound. Let's grab this piece here, and then we're going to drag it out. We're going to stretch it, and then we're going to change this to like tones. Okay, cool. Something interesting. That's already kind of doing a glitchy thing. I'm going to bounce this in place, and then I'm going to stretch it again. And this time I'm going to use like let's use texture. Okay, cool. So now we can bounce this again, right? And this sound already pretty interesting. So we can take this and we can just like drop this in here. And it's still kind of in the same tonal range, feels pretty similar, but you know, we're continuing to manipulate this. We can reverse it. We can stretch it again. We can do the same kind of thing like this, where we just, you know, cool. Yeah, sounds pretty interesting. And you do this enough, you can kind of like place it around and create some interesting one shots that are like, you know, glitchy for what you want to do with this. Yeah. From there, you know, just kind of play around with it. Do more bouncing with like reverbs and delays and reversing. And one of my also favorite things to do is to re-record. So we've got this, and then you can literally take this and throw it back into the simpler. And now this thing. Oh, I need to turn the. It's just gonna play. Maybe it's not big enough for what it's supposed to be playing. Well, you got a little bit of something there. Okay, cool, yeah. So it's already just like slicing back through the same thing, and you can modify your pattern, make it a little more interesting again, you know. And yeah, there you go. Let me know if you have any questions.